Ladies and gentlemen, it is around about time in our species evolution that we need to grow in a way that it doesn't seem possible to grow. We need to think about where we are, who we are, why we are, how we are. You've got to ask some important questions and get some important answers. Because the world that we live in right now is a very unpredictable place. We can never tell what's going to happen from one minute to the next on the abstract level. Not without risking the chance encounter with fate, which may or may not exist. Sometimes we've got to sit back and actually take an objective look at where we are and exactly what the hell we're doing. You see, it doesn't matter what you think about yourself or anyone else. When I say that, I mean that our opinions about each other, however misinformed or well-informed they may be, we need to think to ourselves that they do not matter when we take into consideration the altruism of all life on earth. If our opinions do not lay in a parallel fashion to the cohesion of our biological framework, if it deviates from that, then it's deviating from natural law. And natural law is the ultimate balance for the universe. It is the only unquestionable truth, because it is naked truth. There is nothing that can be done about changing it for what it is, because it is what it is. And it is the only empiricism in the universe. However, empiricism may be an extremely temporal phrase to use, since everything is always in a constant state of transition from one moment to the next. It's very similar to the quantum mechanics supposition that when you get down to the subatomic level, there is always perpetual change. From one minute to the next, every molecule of matter is in a different place at a different time. We recognize that there is no point in attempting to maintain stagnant positions of being, where we think to ourselves, what would it be like to keep moving and not allowed to be held back? Maybe when we accept the finality that we're never going to achieve, when we recognize that it is an emergent universe that we live within, and we need to keep moving along with it. We cannot move along if we are stuck within an archaic monetary system with 17th century regulation. We cannot live in a stalled value orientation evolution. We found that we've possibly emerged into an evolutionary cul-de-sac. And we seem to have forgotten our reverse gear. There is no room for maneuver in this cul-de-sac. It's just a dead end. But we've forgotten that we have a reverse gear. Perhaps since we are collective travellers of the mind, we can never stay in one spot for too long. Because the world keeps turning. Because the universe keeps turning. Everything is always changing. But we're holding on for dear life to values that don't even matter anymore. That have no relevance. We cling on to them for pure tradition. Because we've told ourselves that what we hold dear as tradition has inherent value because of that long-standing nature in our hearts and minds. Have we woken up from the spell yet? Collectively, of course we haven't. We seem to be spinning our evolutionary wheels. So let's remind ourselves of our reverse gear, so we can get the hell out of this cul-de-sac, the hell out of this dead end, and carry on our journey down the road. Because that's one thing for sure. Unless we're on the right road, we will never get far. And it goes without saying how we're going to do this. We all, deep down in our hearts, know what the proper tool for progression is. It's non-violence, of course. No one would ever get anywhere if it weren't for our logical capacity and our ability to adapt. When we adapt, we learn. It's a multifaceted evolution that we embark on every single day of our lives. However, our conscious mind is stuck. Our subconscious is always changing, but at the same time it acts as a mirror for what we are being taught. And as a consequence, we reflect that back into the world, towards other human beings, towards other animals, to the environment in which we live itself. We begin to corrupt it and destroy it, purely because we have lost our way. We have told ourselves for so long that we're going in the right direction, however we've been completely blind. Blind to what we are, blind to what we're doing, blind to each other, and blind to life itself. As a result, we hold irrational but intensely emotional attachments to certain ideologies because we don't like not knowing. We desperately scrape away at our psyche, just looking for that ounce of meaning that gives all of this any validity whatsoever, as though discovering some purpose will give us purpose. However, do we really have a purpose? I guess that's maybe the scariest question that any religious or spiritual person has asked themselves. Is there a meaning to this life? Or is it meaningless? Is there a divine being that shapes our form and function? Is there a divine something out there? Maybe when we think too much, we also think too little at the same time. Maybe our compass just gets completely screwed up. We're not bad people. There is no inherent evil within humanity. Humanity is only what the environment makes him or her into. There is no original sin. We created original sin as a control mechanism for ourselves. Why? Maybe because we cannot adequately account for how the universe has turned out. Maybe we blame ourselves too much because we think and act positively too little. Maybe there is such thing as karma when we consider what we've done to ourselves and to our planet and our universe ultimately, and hence also what it does back to us in return. Is there such thing as cosmic karma? Maybe it's one thing to think about. So as I was saying, what is the only adequate and viable tool for transformation? Love. In a word, love. We cannot solve our problems through fear. Fear only perpetuates our problems. So, we need to think about what we can properly do and what we can properly be. Because this is the only life we get. Is there any point in ruining what future generations could have purely because it's not popular for us to think well about anything? Is it not cool to care anymore? Why have we created such disgusting values as human beings? We are not animals, so why do we behave like them? Why do we treat our fellow man and fellow woman with such spite and anger and hatred? Why? Because we don't like to look at ourselves? We prefer to project our perceived inadequacies and negativities on other people and judge them for it. Why do we feel the need to do that? Why is it so acceptable now to mistreat others purely because we find it impossible to treat ourselves properly? Can we not really look at ourselves and see ourselves for what we actually are? Or are we too afraid to do that? What is this fear that courses through us? Is it only temporary? Or could the worst scenario be true, that it is permanent? Personally, I'm quite an optimist on that front, because I think that we are products of our environment. We are creatures of conditioning, as it were. And why should we consider ourselves in a negative fashion when it's purely not true that we are sinful? We're not sinful. We are what our surroundings coalesce us into. Why do we hold these grudges against ourselves and humanity as a whole? Why do we treat each other with so much spite, as I said earlier? Is it all a game? Do we all play on the same stage? When are we going to wake up? There is so much that we can be doing instead of what we're doing right now. There's so much more love that the world can feel. Let us just grow up and be able to feel that emotion once and for all, where we can actually work together instead of fighting. Maybe one day. Maybe.